Ever feel like your social feed gives you whiplash? I mean, one week it is all about one specific vibe, one aesthetic. And then, just when you think you've got it figured out, poof, it's gone. The internet's already moved on. It's like culture is just moving at warp speed these days.
Like 1 minute, it's all cottagecore.
And then boom, it's dark academia.
And hey, remember the whole Visco girl thing?
And right now, it's the clean girl aesthetic. It's just this never-ending carousel of identities.
So what is going on here? Why does it feel like a brand new identity trend just pops up every single week? Is this all just for fun, or is there something, deeper going on, something that's actually shaping how we see ourselves? Well, we're going to break it all down. And believe it or not, the answer connects our brains, our culture, and a theory that is over 100 years old. Let's dive in.
Okay, so first things first, we've got to talk about the delivery system for all of this, that endless scroll on your phone. It might feel like you're just getting this random stream of videos, but nope, it's actually a super finely tuned machine, and it's designed to tap directly into your brain's most basic, most primitive reward system.
It all boils down to something called the dopamine loop. And this is the very thing that creates that compulsive feeling, that need to just keep scrolling. See, every time you see something new or funny or just entertaining, your brain gives you a little hit of dopamine. That's the chemical that makes you feel good. It's like a tiny reward for your brain. And this process creates this incredibly powerful, almost addictive cycle. You scroll, you get a little unpredictable reward, and that just reinforces the desire to scroll again, always looking for that next little hit. It's basically the same reward system that drives something like gambling. And the platform's algorithm, well, that's the engine that's been engineered to make sure that reward loop never, ever breaks.
So, have you ever wondered why it feels so effortless? Well, it's because these platforms are built to talk to what psychologists call System 1 thinking. That's your fast, intuitive, gut reaction part of your brain. And the whole thing is designed to completely bypass your slower, more analytical System 2 brain. What that means is you're consuming and reacting with almost zero mental effort. It is literally designed to be that easy.
And get this format is perfectly tailored for our modern attention spans, which, by the way, are now down to just about 8 seconds. 8! It's created this crazy feedback loop. The platform feeds our shrinking attention spans, and that in turn trains our brains to crave more and more of this rapid-fire content. So, okay, that's the neurological hook, right? But how does a simple brain hack like that lead to this massive cultural shift in how we see our own identities?
Well, it's because what's happening here isn't just about new trends. No, it's about a fundamental change in how identity itself is even formed. And to really get just how different things are today, we kind of have to look back in time. So think back to youth movements like the hippies or the punks. These were real subcultures, right? They were born from shared beliefs, and they were often pushing back against the mainstream. Even in the early internet days, you had scenes like emo, which were built around music and a sense of community. But today's trends, they're totally different. They're what we call micro-aesthetics, these super specific, visually driven styles that can just pop up and then disappear in a matter of weeks. The early 2000s were a really key turning point here. You had platforms like MySpace, and they basically became a digital home for subcultures like emo. It allowed them to connect with people all over the world. But the key thing is the identity was still born offline. It was rooted in music, in shared experiences, but now it suddenly had this powerful digital amplifier. And historically, those subcultures, they followed a pretty predictable life cycle. You could almost see it as a formula. They'd start with an idea. That idea would grow into a community, and only then, in stage 3, would the market step in and start trying to sell the look. The style was an expression of the group's beliefs. So, what happens when you flip that whole process on its head? Well, a sociologist named Zygmunt Bauman had a pretty interesting idea about this. He basically argued that our traditional sources of identity, things like our local community, our family, they just aren't as solid as they used to be. And that means we are constantly building and then rebuilding who we are. He called it liquid modernity. And in that kind of world, what's easier than just grabbing a prepackaged identity kit online? Because that's really what these aesthetics are. This leads us to this really fascinating kind of mind-bending concept, simulacra. It's a fancy word, but it just means a copy that has no original. Seriously, think about it. A trend like cottagecore didn't come from some real-world community of people living in cottages. It's an idea of that life. It's a performance that exists almost entirely through images on a screen and products you can buy. It's an identity without a real source, a copy of a copy. Okay, so let's recap. We've got a brain that's hooked on dopamine, and we've got a culture full of these fluid, copy-of-a-copy identities.
But what's the fuel for this entire engine? I mean, what is the fundamental human drive that makes this whole system work so perfectly?
What if I told you the final piece of this puzzle, the one key to understanding your entire feed, actually comes from the 1890s? Yeah, way before the internet was even a dream. And this one idea, it connects everything.
The concept is called conspicuous consumption, and it comes from an economist named Thorstein Veblen. Here's his big idea. He argued that the super rich don't buy stuff just because it's useful. They buy it to publicly show off their status and their power. In fact, the wastefulness of it is the whole point. It proves you can afford to be wasteful.
So, Veblen's core idea was that status isn't just about what you have, it's about what you can prove you have. As he wrote himself, esteem is awarded only on evidence. Now let me ask you, what is social media, if not the most powerful evidence-displaying machine ever built in human history? And this right here is the crucial difference, the big takeaway. Old subcultures, they started with beliefs, and then eventually the market came along and sold their style. But today's microaesthetics completely flip that script. They often begin as basically a shopping list. Get the right hair, buy the right jewelry, own the right bag, and then an identity is just sort of attached to those products later on.
So there you have it. The reason a new trend seems to pop up every single week is basically a perfect storm. First, it starts with your brain, which is hooked by a carefully engineered dopamine loop that craves new things. Second, this feeds a culture of fluid, disposable identities, which aren't really organic subcultures anymore, they're just commercialized aesthetics. And finally, the whole system is powered by this timeless human drive to display our status to the world, now amplified 1,000,000 times over by social media.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. When identity itself becomes a trend that you can just buy, are you actually expressing yourself, or are you just consuming? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you find yourself scrolling.